Greetings, brothers and sisters. I've seen a number of comments where I can see that the sittings are being used incorrectly. The sittings that are, available here at Gratefulness Meditation. And I'm going to go through the simple practice, the spiritual practice again. I think I've covered it here. I think I've explained this in the different videos, the different playlists. And if you haven't listened to the introductions to the playlists, you shouldn't be doing the sittings in that playlist. And it might be good to listen to the introductions to each of the playlists and all the content on this channel over and over again, like maybe once a year, or if you haven't done the practice in a while, or you're confused about something. There's, Charji had wanted everyone to read Babaji's complete works once a year. His 5 short books that are in complete works of Ramchandra. It's available on the internet in PDF form if you can't find the book. Of course, the book is out there. I think it still might be on the Sahaj Marg bookstore. And, my master, these books, they were all meant to be read over and over again. But in terms of the explanation of the Sahaj Marg practice, what we do here in Gratefulness, there is a lot of it I cover in the introductions here as well. And so I want to go through that again here to make sure people know that what these sittings are for in the playlists and how they're to be used. The first thing to know is that this is a discipline, a spiritual discipline, and you have a role to play, and it's a discipline of choice. You're not being forced. You're not being, harassed to do the practice the way it's said to do it. You're not being, there's no force being used. You're not being shamed. You're not being, you're just supposed to do it, right? Like it's your choice, and the choice to do it the right way. And the right way is very simple. And it shouldn't be mixed with other things. It shouldn't be mixed with other energy systems. This thing that Daji's doing with bringing in Hatha Yoga, where, Hatha Yoga ultimately has some pranayama, which is breathing and moving your prana with breath, which is not recommended. But the system, the sittings, and the practice that you do is a complete unit. There's no need for any other spiritual practices. It was a huge problem, which I didn't fully understand, and even till recently, how few people do the practice the way it's prescribed. It's a prescription, and not from some bogus quack doctor, but from, divine beings who have put together the simplest and easiest way to connect with divinity within you. And it is comprehensive, everything that's there. And also in this YouTube channel, it's comprehensive as well. Everything that you need to do the practice is here as well. And links to the site where you can find out more about it, and also the books. So, Charji used to say, well, people shouldn't do Reiki, and, there were people doing pranayama, not pranayama, but pranic healing. So, the idea is that you don't need to do other things. And there are people in India who would do their rituals. They would be brought up doing mantras and rituals and things that were often counterproductive. And so your old religious practices or whatever new age things you were doing is not, is not something that's a part of the practice, and it can be harmful to it. There were times where Babaji was talking to some guy who was doing a mantra, and the mantra was basically calling God to him. And he was saying it over and over again. So basically what he's saying is, God, come here, God, come here, God, come here. And God shows up, and you say, come here. You're calling him. You only have to call him once, right? And so the mantra is being misused. A lot of the spiritual mantras they do in India and things like that are, these rituals have been lost. The essence of it, the energy behind them, and the way to do them right has been lost. So, Kamlesh bringing in all these old practices and Hindu stuff is a big problem in that way. There's things like I do acupressure that's, like you can do acupuncture. There's things that are healing in nature that are energetic. But anything that's spiritual and has a spiritual component or religious component is, often harmful. It often blocks, or, you have to just commit to the one system. And, Americans like this, New Age people like to do a smorgasbord. Oh, I'll try this, I'll try that. Find something that works, and it's a discipline. And the more you do it for the years that you do it, it grows and evolves. So it's not something where you just try it just to have an experience of it and then move on to something else and mix and match and things. It's like I said, it's a complete, comprehensive system. And the system is you have your practice. And when you meditate in the morning, the sittings are not supposed to be used. This meditation's here. The meditation you do in the morning, you're not getting an individual or group sitting because that's something different. Your meditation is for you to learn to connect to God directly through the meditative process. And you might feel transmission, you might feel connection. Usually you will feel something, and it's for you to establish this connection and feel the connection. And then you're supposed to keep with that connection through the process of constant remembrance, thinking that God is there doing your work, doing living your life, and, it's God and not you. And so that's the idea of constant remembrance. You're always thinking about God, like God is talking through me right now, or God is brushing his teeth, or God, any number of things like this, right? That you go through your daily activities and you bring God into all of them. And if you do this for a period of 7 days, constant remembrance, having this idea that it's God and not you doing all your work, it becomes automatic after that. And eventually will lead to mergence with the divine within you. And so that's, very, it's a big thing. The constant remembrance itself is, if you have that feeling, it's also bringing that feeling that you get. Let's say you have a great meditation, you feel God, you're very, you have a very calm feeling of God, your mind is calm and not busy, and you feel connected, which you might feel when you're doing any of the number of the sittings or any things like this. Or you go to a gathering, and you come back from the gathering, you start your day, and then you want to keep that feeling. That's another way of practicing constant remembrance. You feel God with you, you feel God connected to you, and you keep that feeling. You fight to keep that feeling as your day's work and the things that you have to do during the day are there, right? And so the other part of your practice is the cleaning that happens at the end of your day's activities. The meditation is, to be done for an hour, not more than an hour. You can do it less, but it's, best to do it the way it's prescribed, which is an hour. It's supposed to be done before dawn. So the meditation in the morning, you say the prayer once, which is the way that you connect to the energy. And then you meditate on the supposition of divine light in your heart. And then when you do the cleaning at night, the idea is that you don't say the prayer. You have this idea that you're using the will force to push all the day's impressions out of your back in the form of smoke and vapors, and this should be done for a half hour. And again, no video is being used here, because the videos are you're getting a sitting, and that's not what this is about. This is your personal practice. This is your commitment to doing the practice, and you're supposed to connect to God through the practice. And so this is where you learn to, through the transmission and cleaning you get in the sittings and group meditation, you are, then able to do your own practice and facilitate that connection through doing the prayer and feeling God's love and things like transmission through your own practice. And so the cleaning is you committing to cleaning some scars, cleaning the day's impressions, and having them go off your back in the form of smoke and vapor. And the idea is that, and in the front, from your front, the transmission or the infinite store of light or love, or God's love, is coming in your front, in your heart, as these impressions and things are going out your back. So that's the cleaning process. So that's to be done before you go to bed. And then there's a prayer that you do at night. You do the meditation and prayer. You pray 3 times. You say the prayer like 3 times, and then you go to sleep. And there's the 10 maxims of Sahaj Marg that you can also do. And with the 10th maxim, you would do it at that time, where you would beg God for forgiveness for any wrongs you committed knowingly or unknowingly, and that you would, vow not to repeat them, and it's like a moment of redemption before going to sleep. Which I really worked on this for like a period of 3 months, the 10th maxim, and found it very beneficial. But the first maxim starts off with doing your meditation. Do your prayer and puja at the fixed hour, sitting in the same pose, and purity of mind and body is to be adhered to. Now, I don't think I have that verbatim, but you can look up the 10 maxims. And the 10 maxims take you through the day. So that's, enhanced. Most people didn't do their practice. And there's one more thing, is the 9 o'clock prayer, where you, at 9 o'clock for 15 minutes, you pray that all your brothers and sisters, this is the idea that all your brothers and sisters throughout the world are being filled with love and devotion, and real faith is growing stronger in them. And so that's something where you're praying for everybody else, and you'll feel transmission going through you. At least that's how, I feel it. And so when I was just starting, I just broke up with an ex-girlfriend, and I started a new job. I had been waiting tables for about 8 years, and I was finishing up my bachelor's degree. I was taking my third attempt at graduating college, my third college, and I was getting a bachelor's degree in human services. And I worked in a treatment center, and I worked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and a double Saturday. And so that was 40 hours at the place. And I didn't get home till 10 o'clock at night. And so, I had a weird schedule, and I probably wouldn't go to bed till 11 or 12. I'd eat like a meal at like 10 o'clock after work. I'd be hungry. And working in the treatment center was intense. And so oftentimes I would go to sleep for a little bit, and I'd wake up at 2 in the morning and do my hour meditation. I was born at 2 in the morning. And there's a good time to meditate, which is between 2 and 4 in the morning, but obviously that's not ideal. But it's a spiritual time. And the reason that you meditate before dawn is because, especially in India, you see, but this is how it is everywhere, that during the daylight hours is when your body and you are in physical reality in terms of your physical life. That's the time of your life force. And when it gets dark at night, there's a balance in the universe between a balance on planet Earth at sunset and at sunrise. And you can feel spiritual energy. That's why people go look at the sunset. You'll feel something, because light meets day. Darkness meets light. Light and darkness are like merging together, right? There's a transformation from the day to the night. And during the nighttime hours is when you're closer to death, right? The heat of the day is being withdrawn from you, the sun's energy. And that's why you sleep at night, and you are, in a more of a death-like state. And then you wake up in the morning and you're in your life-like state, right? And so the heat is most withdrawn from you. The sun's heat energy is most withdrawn from you right before you wake up in the morning. So meditating at dawn is a good time to meditate for those reasons. There's other good times. But for me, I had a weird schedule. But I did the practice the way it was, prescribed, because I did the hour meditation every day. Sometimes I would do the meditation in the middle of the night, and then I'd wake up, go back to sleep, and wake up in the morning and do another hour meditation. Then I would write in my diary, which is also part of the practice, and then I would read Sahaj Marg literature, and I would, I would go to work at 2 in the afternoon. So I work from 2 to 10 at night. And so I had all that time to do that, right? So I would devote my whole mornings to the practice. I would read literature for 2 or 3 hours, after writing in my diary. So this is how I was able to start Sahaj Marg, which I dedicated because I was in a period of time. I didn't have really social life. I just moved to a new place. And so I would, I had all this time. I had 3 days off a week. And then I would go to satsang on Wednesday night, and Sunday, the group meditation. There was 2 satsangs, group meditation in the area. Eventually, they built their own little meditation center there. Right at the time that I was moving out, like right before I moved out, they were one of the preceptors converted a basement in a building he bought for his computer business into a meditation hall. And it sat about 100 or 200 people or something like this. It wasn't an ashram, but it had nice energy. But before that, we would go to the preceptor's house. There was senior preceptors, a couple that had a satsang at their house. Eventually, it got too many people for their house, so they went to different venues, and then numbers would go back down, and then they go back to their house, whatever it was. But we go to their house every Sunday morning, and I would go to satsang. And then on Wednesday night, my preceptor had satsang at his house. Less people would go to that. That was like an extra satsang. And I'd get an individual sitting Monday or Tuesday, because I was always off, usually Tuesday. And then I would, do my practice the rest of the time. And I'd come home, do my cleaning before going to bed, all these things. And when I could, I did the 9 o'clock prayer. Often I would do it while I was at work. The kids would be settling down and going to bed at the treatment center. And I really liked the 9 o'clock prayer. I liked all the practice, but that was maybe my favorite part. And so, I dove into the practice, and I thought everyone else did the same thing. But there are people who never really practiced the system. They didn't do it for any length of time. They didn't do the hour meditation on their own. They didn't, they would do sittings. There would be preceptors and things. But, for me, I had 2 years where I did the practice exclusively. Then I got married, and it was harder. And I couldn't read like I used to. I couldn't write in my diary like I used to. Like I still did the practice. I always did the cleaning because I felt it was necessary. It would help me sleep and, help me function. But, I did the practice pretty routinely. My ex didn't do her practice, really. So that was, whatever. She was into it. She had been practicing longer than I had, but she never really did the practice as a discipline. But that's your side of it, right? And so when you do the 9 o'clock, when you do the cleaning at night, that's not time to do a sitting online. Like the sitting is for something else, right? The sitting's for deeper cleaning, and that's not where you're learning how to use the system to do your own cleaning, right? In the morning meditation, again, you're not supposed to use these sittings. You're not supposed to use the videos, because that's somebody doing it for you, which is what you want to avoid. The practice that you do is for you to learn and stand on your own 2 feet spiritually and connect to the divinity within you. And again, if there's a prescribed practice, meditate for an hour before dawn or when you first wake up, whatever it is. Again, people are going to do it shorter. They're going to maybe can't meditate for a whole hour. I mean, it is what it is. But this prescription is there, right? The discipline is there. And then you do your cleaning at the end of the day, and that's your part of it, the prayer and going to bed. The idea of doing the prayer before you go to sleep is that you're connecting to divinity through your dreaming, your sleep hours. And then you wake up in the morning and do your practice, right? And then you do your cleaning at night, and then you go to bed, all these things. I mean, cleaning can be done at like 7 at night, and then, then whatever. But it's to get rid of any impressions that you form. And so that's your end of the thing. And so the group meditation, which happens every Sunday, now here I'm giving a sitting or sittings coming through me every Sunday. So there's no reason to do any of the videos. You can do the video which does the timing. I did some videos where there's not a sitting. It was the first videos I did here. That was before, I had that dream with Charji saying I was a preceptor again. But before that, I did some videos where I just did the timing where you can use them to do your morning meditation or do your cleaning. One's an hour long, one's a half hour long. And that's where you just play the video. But, if ads are being run in the videos, it's better probably just to set your alarm for an hour or whatever. And, again, that's always, if you go into a deep state and the alarm goes off, it sucks. So, it's just, I didn't do any of those things. I just meditated, and occasionally I would look at the clock, but you kind of know how long an hour is, right? And so there's that. And so Sunday, if you sit and, when you first wake up sometime in the morning, there'll be a sitting given every Sunday, a group meditation. And so there's no real reason to use a video there. And then for individual sittings, you can use any of the sittings that are there. Now, if you're going through something where you need deep cleaning, there are 3 sittings given in one day, and that's called the intensive cleaning. And please listen to the introduction, and then you can do that. I've used it like 4 or 5 times already. I found it very helpful. It's something that we did as preceptors and then as abhyasis and preceptors, where we received 3 sittings in one day and we gave 3 sittings in one day. And then we did it for other people where we did 2 batches of people where we gave 3 sittings as preceptors. So we had these intensive weekends, and then they quit on that. They just stopped doing it. I talked to the preceptor in charge, and he blew me off or whatever. But it's a great way to get deep cleaning, having 3 sittings in one day. When you're made a preceptor, you get multiple sittings over a 3 or 4 day period, depending on how many you need. I had 8, and 3 of them were with Master Charji, and they were deep sittings, deep cleaning, and it had a phenomenal effect on my condition, where there was just nothing there. When I meditated, there was just nothing, no thoughts, no anything, right? So the intensive is great if you're going through trauma, you're going through a difficult time, you feel gross, whatever. But you don't want to use it like every day. It's not like that. And the individual sittings, it used to be one. You were supposed to get 1 a week. You get 3 to start, and there's introductory sittings that you can do on this channel, and you could do them again if you haven't practiced in a while or something like that. I don't think there's any harm in doing the introductory sittings. They're a little bit different. And there's 2 individual sittings that you can do. One's an absolute, which is a technique that I really liked as a preceptor, and it has a profound effect in terms of deepening one's spiritual experience and connecting them to the absolute divinity within them. And so there's all these sittings that are there. And please, again, listen to the introduction, and you can do these sittings. Now, like I said, if you're going through something and the world's so gross right now and what's ever going on, you can do individual sittings every day, but that does not replace your responsibility of your own practice. That's not a substitute for your morning meditation or your nighttime cleaning or something like that. Again, if you don't want to do it, you don't do it, because people have that choice. And, I never really fully understood how few people did their practice, because Charji was talking about all over and over again. I played a recent talk, his last talk on 2014, the year that he passed away, the New Year's talk, and he talked about how, you got to meditate, right? And he was even, at the end of his life, he was still talking about people meditating and doing the practice, because they were still doing their rituals, they were still doing whatever things that they grew up with, and they weren't doing the practice the way it was prescribed. And it's, again, a spiritual discipline. And if you do it the way it's done, if you do it the way it's supposed to be done, the effects are the best because you're cooperating. You're not saying you know more. You're not saying that no, I'm not going to do it the way you prescribe. I know more than Babaji. I know more than, that's what you're saying when you don't do it. And, you could say, well, I don't have enough time, and there's always those, whatever, sure. That's up to you, right? But, in terms of benefiting from it, you do it the way that it's said to be done. Even if you just, I don't do it as much as I used to do. I do some cleaning pretty much every night. And I do, some meditation on most days. I pretty much do the 9 o'clock universal prayer every night. But there are nights that I forget or don't, My wife and I do that together. And then, doing the satsang. I mean, the satsang, passed through me this morning. And then sometimes I just do sittings for people, not in general, like just the idea that the Divine Master is there, is working through me because of the preceptor stuff. It's just keeping the energy moving. But, I did the practice very disciplined. It was very disciplined in the beginning. And because of the videos and just things that have happened, where the energy flows through me during the videos, there's a connectivity there. And I think about God a lot more and the Master in terms of the constant remembrance. There's a natural flow to that. I feel connected all the time. And so the practice isn't maybe as necessary as it was in the beginning, but you have to do it in the beginning. You just do. It's, and then, you have to do it for as long as it takes for it to become where you're doing it all the time naturally, where you're naturally just connected all the time. And, you know, I wouldn't say that that's the case for me, but it's a lot more now. I'm connected a lot more. And a lot of it has to do with doing the videos and things. Because, you know, I'm constantly feeling like energy coming through me, like being a conduit in one way or another. So I'm devoting, you know, the time I would give to the practice to doing these videos, is what I'm saying, which is what Babaji said to Charji. Like, she told Charji, you don't have to do your cleaning and your meditation anymore, but you have to give that time to me by doing spiritual work. And so, like, there was that. So if that's the case, then that's the case, but that's not going to be the case right off the bat. And so to really, you know, get into this thing, you have to do it the way it's prescribed. And your responsibility is to meditate on your own at some time in the morning. You know, again, the prescription is there before dawn and whatever, an hour-long period. But, you know, again, people do what they can do. And, you know, sometimes people just can't meditate that long. I don't know. Like, I can't, you know, excuse or permit something because, you know, there was a time where I was no longer a preceptor. And I was going to this preceptor who, you know, was a nice guy. But he didn't really ever do the practice. I don't think he read the books. And, you know, we'd go to satsang, me and my, you know, ex and my family, and he was starting sometimes as much as 10 minutes late. So satsang was like at 9 o'clock. And he moved it to 10 eventually. But he wouldn't start it precisely on time. And that was something the Charji said you had to do. And then people would show up sometimes a half hour into it. They would come through, and it was like, you know, men and women weren't sitting on opposite sides of the room, and it wasn't set up very well. It had a couch, and, you know, people would just sit, you know, all mingled together, which isn't what it's supposed to be. And people would come in the middle of the room, and then, you know, would meditate, like, you know, would just sit down and disturb everybody. And his wife, who used to practice, you know, his dad had just died, and his wife's dad died, and his wife, I think, was mad at God. And she would come into the kitchen, which was right, it was an open floor plan where the living room was right in the kitchen, and she would make noise right in the middle of satsang. Like, I don't know if she was, I mean, she stopped meditating and was whatever. And his son, who was a teenager, would come down and, like, get ice out of the, like, refrigerator. His son eventually drowned. It was kind of a tragedy, and I think the guy quit altogether. Last time I saw him, he was at the funeral, and he looked like he was, like, you know, I mean, he looked as bad as I've ever seen anybody look in my life. Like, he was so miserable. They had an only child, and he went to, you know, it was a thing where he was supposed to do something. There was a center in charge, and they were having you know, an event to bring people in. And he was, you know, as the only preceptor, was supposed to be a part of that. And the center in charge was really good. You know, he was not a preceptor, but he was not a center in charge. That's a preceptor. But he was in charge of he was like a coordinator. And the coordinator ended up being a preceptor when this guy quit. And he did a wonderful job. And they have an ashram there, and he was really devoted. But this guy went to the beach instead of doing his, you know, what he was supposed to be doing. I'm not saying that he got punished or anything like that, but, you know, he went to the beach with a neighbor who occasionally would meditate. And the neighbor had two twins, like young kids. And he was on the beach watching his neighbor's kids, and the neighbor was out in the ocean swimming with his son. And, you know, there's a lot of undertows at the Virginia, North Carolina beaches. There's just a very strong undertow in that area. You don't see as much in Florida, and I don't know about Georgia, but South Carolina, maybe not as much. But definitely there in North Carolina and Virginia. I swam in those oceans. And not so much even in the East Coast in Connecticut and Rhode Island, but there's a strong current. And his son, who was a teenager, just got sucked into the ocean. Like, he just disappeared. Weird thing, right? And the guy was devastated. But anyways, he wasn't, you know, he was, going back to the story, he was doing the group meditation, and finally I felt like I had to say something. I said, you know, you can't do it this way. You have to start on time, and you can't allow people to come in. You're supposed to lock the door at, you know, whatever it is. People are, you know, if you got there late, you're supposed to sit maybe outside on the porch or go into another room. Like, if he has another room, so you don't disturb, and, you know, people are in a state of meditation. You don't walk through them, banging into them and things as you're you're finding a seat, in a time where everyone's meditating because you got there late, right? If you get there late, you could say stay in your car and sit there and, whatever. Like it's just out of respect to everybody else. But you have to start on time, and I, explain the men and the women. I explain all these things. Like he should have read this because he didn't even read the preceptor books, and he should know all this already as an Abhyasi. And he came up to me like 2 weeks later and said, some people are going to be late today. Can we start later? Like, and I'm like, I'm not the authority here. Like, I can't give you permission to do that. Like, I'm not, there's a prescription here. There's a discipline. And, you can violate the discipline. You can have the choice to do that. It's extremely arrogant to do that, right? But you make it frickin' work, right? You get up early and you make sure you get there early. Like, you're supposed to get there early before. You're supposed to get there a half hour early, and do some cleaning and get yourself ready to accept or to process the transmission. You're getting yourself into the mood, right? Like like there was an interview with the NBA commissioner and an ex-basketball player, J.J. Redick, and they were talking about the All-Star game for the NBA. And the All-Star game ended up being a joke last year, 2022. And they had a concert beforehand, and they do all these like goofy things, and they bring in celebrities, and they're just doing all this stuff, right, to make it more, give it more bling or whatever. And the commissioner said, we can't have another game. He was talking to the players and, the Players Association. We can't have another game like last year. That was like embarrassing. Like it wasn't even really, it became just a joke. They weren't even playing. And the players said, if you're going to do that, then we have to have our time before the game to shoot and prepare for the game, right? Like the players come out, if you ever see a basketball game, and they do a layup line, and the stuff that I used to do when I played. And you do a layup line, everyone gets to dribble the ball a little bit, and they do pregame shooting and different types of things that they do to get ready, to get like just like you stretch and you warm up and things like this, right? You do stretches and things, and you're supposed to do that before satsang, right? Like you don't show up a minute ahead of time, and then you're having an argument with your wife or your husband in the car, and you stumble into satsang and you're preoccupied and your kids are doing, whatever it is, right? And so you're supposed to get there early and prepare to receive this. Receive is the right word, not accept, I said earlier, but receive. And so it's a whole thing, and you take it seriously, and people don't, and that's on them. But that's, a big reason why the practice is sort of shit to bed with Daji and all these things, And Daji even himself said, well, you don't need to do the cleaning the way it's prescribed, but just do it when you feel like you need it. And you can do that as extra. If you feel like you need some cleaning, then you can do the cleaning. Like if you feel like gross or disconnected, or you've been traumatized, or you've seen something that's leaving an impression, you can do some cleaning, right? But then there's the half-hour cleaning that you do. And, if you end up having to do it for less time later on, sure, that's great. But that's only if it's, if it's real that you're still, getting the benefit from it. So like it's a discipline, and you could do it as much or as little as you want, and that's on you, but you're suffering. Like it's not, there's no meditation police. It's something where you learn the discipline, you try it, and you try to accommodate there was a time where someone came to Babaji, and then Babaji said, this is the practice. And the guy said, well, I'm way too busy to do that. And Babaji said, well, think about somebody who is more busy than you. Is there anybody more busy than you? And he said, the prime minister. I said, well, no, like somebody, whatever. He goes, oh, my boss. And he goes, well, subtract your busyness, the time that you have in terms of your busy schedule from the time that he has, right? Because his boss is busier than him. And whatever time that is, like let's say it's a half hour, give me that for meditation, right? And the guy's like, oh, you're making fun of me, and left, right? But but Babaji said that you can always find time. If you're saying you're too busy, well, there's always somebody more busy than you. So you could squeeze out the time. And, people have their leisure hours or whatever. And so, you do the practice or not. That's your choice. But there's a way to do it. And, these sittings are there for enhancement of your practice, like deeper cleaning in the individual sittings. And group meditation's there for deeper connectivity. But your own practice is where you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, so to speak, and do the practice without being propped up by a preceptor or transmission or the sittings or whatever in the videos. And so that's what needs to be done here. Again, if you haven't listened to the introductions to the videos, well, you're not, the introduction to the playlists. Each playlist has an introduction, and then there's an overall introduction. And all these things, it's not that much time in terms of like people listening to crap on the internet all the time, right? Like, people have listened to hours of my journey series. But, when it comes to these videos, all of them are about the practice. And also, there are links there to connect to the literature and these other things. And as you read through these things, I've read all the literature, basically, that was available to me. And I've heard stories, and it was there for talks of Chargy's and where Chargy and was around. But, I have a comprehensive knowledge of like all things Sahaj Marg. And, it's worthwhile because it's interesting and it's very beneficial to know all this stuff. And so, some of these things are missing now. It sucks. Dodgy's, scrub some of the literature, and, you can't go to gatherings like we used to, all these things. But it's available now in a different way, a less, personal way in the videos here on this channel. And it's, there's videos that will help do the sitting videos, and then there's explanation videos. And the explanation videos need to be listened to, and so what you're supposed to do. Like, you can choose not to, but there should be no ignorance of your part of the practice, which again is an hour meditation in the morning, half-hour cleaning at night, a 15-minute prayer at 9 o'clock, and a prayer before you go to sleep. It's an hour. You're devoting an hour and whatever time it is, hour and a half, an hour and 50 minutes or something to the practice, right? This is what one of the preceptors said, but he used to leave out the 9 p.m. prayer, which is again, it's up to you. Like, it's beneficial. Everything that's done in the practice, there should be a like, wow, I feel better. I feel better after doing that. Like, that's how I feel when I do it. Oh yeah, that helped me. Like, I now will be more efficient when my work, more efficient in my day. Like, I save a lot more time by doing the meditation, by doing the practice, because I function better. And so it takes me less time to accomplish my tasks, and I don't do things and waste time on things that aren't really important. And, I make better decisions about my time usage. So even though it takes so much time to do the meditation, I have way more time during the day because I make better choices with how I spend my time, and I'm more efficient as a person. But anyways, that's for each person to decide, but I want to clarify this. Only spirituality will save this world, is Paul Romano definitely reporting for the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.